Our guy B.Scott has all the latest from the gridiron.
I don't see no bitches nowhere around here.
It's time for your weekly Texans report.
We ain't laying down for nobody.
On The Drive with Stoerner and Hughley.
Ron Hughley is out. B.Scott is in, so you're getting a good 4-hour-long Texans report today and tomorrow.
That's
by the
right.
way.
That's right.
But this is that time of the week. It's that segment throughout the week where during Rockets season, it's a Rockets report. During Texans OTAs, it's a Texans report. Damn it, it's a B.Scott report. And this happens to be a Texans B.Scott report we got going on right here. B.Scott, man, there's a lot of talk the C.J. Stroud thing, to death, and it is a huge topic. But we're hearing from a lot of players, and I know you've been there asking the questions. You damn sure heard all the audio, but you're hearing some pretty interesting things on that side of town.
Yeah, and in the interest of all the pieces mattering, including C.J. Stroud, but beyond that, one of the big topics as we go into this season, Clint, is the new look offense. What's it going to look like? What's it going to be about? Of course, they got new pieces, both in terms of weaponry and the offensive line being remade. So all eyes are on that. I think we're all excited about the defense and believe in what DeMeco Ryans is doing with the defense, the leadership of Will Anderson, Derek Stingley Jr. being an all-pro, Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock being the type that can emerge as real, legitimate, standout players. Like, we're excited overall about the team, but we don't have a good sense for what this offense is going to look like, because how could we? The offensive coordinator is not only new to the team, but he's in his first year playing in this or operating in this role, right? So I thought it would be good, since we got Christian Kirk yesterday, to ask him just a simple two-part question, which I did. I asked Christian Kirk, and his answer made me think of you, Clint, so I'm glad you're back. I asked him, what do you like about this offense? Kind of a generic question that I'd allow him to kind of go into to give us his own thoughts. What do you like about this offense, and what is the difficulty in learning it? And this is what Christian Kirk, your new Texans wide receiver, had to say.
You tell it very smart, does a great job communicating to us, what the expectations are, route detail, motions, formations, whatever the case may be. He's done a great job kind of laying that out for us. And it's been, I guess, primarily pretty easy, just being able to learn it the way he's been able to install it. Ben McDaniels in our room has done a great job teaching us just all the things from a football IQ aspect that you need to know as a receiver. And this offense is dynamic. A lot of motions, a lot of pre-snap adjustments for the defense to have to, deal with. So I think you'll see a lot of guys in different places to be able to make plays.
A lot of motions, a lot of pre-snap adjustments, and all teaching it in a way that is easy to learn. These are all things that made me think of you, Clint. So yep. I wanted to get your reaction to that. What does that make you think of or does that give you some kind of confidence in hearing a veteran who's new to the team, learning an offense that is also new to the team, speak about it in that way? Wanted to get your reaction to that.
Well, B.Scott, look, for me, it's easy, man. I mean, a lot of these players and a lot of these coaches, they have the buzzwords around the league. It's a monkey see, monkey do, or I guess I should say monkey hear, monkey say kind of deal, where it's, guys, you hear somebody say something, all the offensive coordinators right now are talking about, every offense coordinator in America now is saying, oh, man, I'm going to tailor my offense to each kind of the players that I have, my players' strengths.
Sure.
That's a buzz phrase right now. I think one of the buzz phrases, I know we've heard it around here a lot, is we're going to use a lot of motions and formations to confuse defenses kind of deal. I love it. I absolutely love it. I thought it's real. You know what I mean? Like, I hope it's not a catchphrase. I hope it's, I hope that is something that we're looking at where formations and motions are used to our advantage. I mean, it's not easy. But, the good coordinators, I'm not talking about the great ones, the good ones are going to give you formationally and with shifts as well as pre-snap movements, motions, are going to give you mismatches throughout a game where the quarterback has throws in the ocean. And that is one thing that CJ, I think he had a lot of it his first year, but this last year, everything was so damn difficult. He had to earn every completion. And, you go watch Matthew Stafford out there. I'll use Matthew Stafford because that's where Kaylee came from. You go watch Matthew Stafford, and somehow in crunch time, game on the line, in a drive, they'll find a way to get what's my man out there with the big head, the receiver he's got?
Puka Nacua.
They'll find a way to get Puka Nacua wide ass open.
I love this how we identified him.
In a critical, he's got a big head, man.
He does.
But like McVay finds a way to get that guy, like literally a throw in the ocean for the quarterback in critical moments of the game, like 2 or 3 times. You're just like, that's what good coordinators do.
Yeah.
Well, let me rephrase it. That's what great coordinators do, right? And so I know it's not easy, but you start hearing Christian Kirk, who's been around the league for a while, start talking about, yeah, man, motions and movements and formations, they're going to be used to our advantage. I hope he's right. I hope we see that come to fruition, because football is it's never easy, but it's a lot less difficult when you've got a coordinator that's on the ones and twos dialing things up.
Yeah, man, it just stood out to me, everything that you mentioned, and of course all of the motions and the pre-snap stuff, and of course it's hard to separate those comments from understanding C.J. Stroud's sort of new role and all of that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of tying all that together, and I'm getting excited just thinking about it, right? And then on top of that, I just hadn't, and this is really more of a buzzword and not all that specific, kind of more so specific what we were just talking about, but just a more generic buzzword that he used that I had not heard anybody else use was dynamic. And, of course, you're going to describe your own offense like that. You ain't going to never hear a player come out here and just say, and especially being new to the team, be like, man, you know what? This offense ain't bleep.
Yeah.
This offense ain't dynamic. It ain't cool. It ain't fun. It ain't none of that stuff, man. It's just basic. It ain't nothing. But just the fact that that was his choice of words. This offense is dynamic, and the part about them being teachers of the game that make it easier for them to learn and understand what it is that they're trying to teach. I feel like in the recent past, that there's been some disconnect in the teaching and the learning, or the teachers and the students, so to speak, and how things, not just what they were doing, but how they were coaching it, and sort of some of the discord and the communication that was happening in that offensive room. It seems like there is some remedy to that. Now, of course, we're early on. Time will tell when the rubber hits the road, so to speak, and there's some controversy and this is to test, right? Adjustments to the adjustments, right? Like we'll see when that time comes.
Yeah, doing it in real time is a lot more difficult, to do than it is to say it. Obviously, it's easy. Like you look at last year, and I would, as I said before, I wasn't as critical of Bobby Slowick in year 2, just like I wasn't as impressed with Bobby Slowick in year 1 as a lot of people. It's the water's going to level out at some point, right? But I think it's very accurate to say, you look back at like Bobby Slowick, and the football 101 things were not handled, and that's just the communication, right? And then you look at even the more advanced stuff, which is exactly what Christian Kirk just said about Nick Caley, of like the inability to do what your players do well. Like, again, I know people will sit around and talk about, and I don't like to make excuses at all for Dalton Schultz, but the fact that Dalton Schultz was asked to block a true defensive end in a critical situation in a playoff game, in a survive and advance game, like that's the definition of doing what your players aren't good at, like making your players play to their weaknesses and making them play left-handed instead of playing to their strengths. So it's difficult. We saw it be a problem last year in Houston, and hopefully Nick Caley can right that and get moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and it also made me think about, I know that we heard from a wide receiver and he talked about Ben McDaniels, but since we're talking about some of the new guys, it made me think about, and we'll see how much of a difference this actually is, how much it actually comes into fruition on the football field, but the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach who's last year, them being more aligned and being on the same page, kind of working on a string, if you will. Like, that part is significant to me when you think about how, and I don't know what the relationship was exactly, but there was clearly some disconnect between Bobby Slowick and Chris Strausser, the former offensive line coach, and to our understanding, Chris Strausser really had no real experience in this type of offense, in the type of offense that Bobby Slowick was running. So there was just a natural disconnect that never really seemed to remedy itself. Even with a year of experience under their belt coming into year 2, that didn't seem to help much. It does feel like between Nick Caley, Cole Popovich, and if you want to even tie it into Nick Caserio, all these guys basically come from the same stock. And I think that part is going to matter for better or worse. I think all of that is going to matter in terms of how they play as a unit.
Well, I think look, one of the biggest problems last year, it falls in the lap of the offensive coordinator, and the firing is justifiable. But the reality of it is I don't think you had a coaching staff that saw this thing through the same lens.
No, clearly not.
We can talk about the communication with C.J. Stroud and the offensive line's inability to communicate at the line of scrimmage, and if you don't have the ability, like you just mentioned, the difference being Cole Popovich and Kaylee being so close, if you don't have the ability for that offensive coordinator, that offensive line coach to go to the sideline in the middle of a heated game where you're not protecting your quarterback, you're getting your ass kicked, and go, hey, here's what we're going to do, man. These are the two adjustments that we can go to. We're not going to have Dalton Schultz protecting a true defensive end, rush end. He may have to block a linebacker or a safety, but we're going to stay answers. We've got answers. We've talked about it. We know each other like the back of our hand. Here's what we're going to go to. Right, that is a huge advantage. Clearly, that wasn't a thing last year, and I don't think it. Look, Strausser and Slowick, I think have caught a lot of the heat, but it wouldn't shock me at all if it was all involved. Right, there was a lot of different thoughts and frustrations with how things were handled.
It seemed like at every turn, so many were being pulled in different directions.
Yeah, this is how I would do it. This is how, and the whole time Bobby Slowick was like, "No, we're going to do it this way," and you sumbucks are going to have to execute it.
Yeah,
and that bit him in the ass. So we shall see. Hopefully, those guys are aligned and have the answers that we need. We'll see if they can protect the quarterback.
I also want to add real quick too, just since we're on the topic of Christian Kirk, and I mentioned this yesterday with Lou Clint. But for me, I understand he's the slot guy, but until proven otherwise, this is their number 2 guy in terms of weaponry. And maybe some folks don't like to think of the slot guy as that guy. I would say go see the Detroit Lions and Amon-Ra St. Brown being primarily a slot guy, and he's their number 1.
Yeah.
But I think until Jaden Higgins or Jalen Noel or somebody on this offensive unit that we just haven't seen yet emerges and takes that spot, Christian Kirk is easily their second most accomplished guy and their second best pass catching option for me right now.
There's no doubt about it. But the reality of it is you got Nico Collins. You just need the other pieces to fall in place, right?
Yeah, that's
true.
You
need Dalton Schultz to produce. Right, you need Christian Kirk to be that reliable slot. You need at some point one of these young ones to come around, third or fourth wide receiver. You need Joe Mixon to be involved in the pass game, the screen game to help. You need those ancillary pieces, if you will, to just contribute. You don't need Stephon Diggs to be an all-pro player next to Nico Collins. You don't need Tank Dell to be demanding 90 catches and 1,100 yards. And you don't need all that. You just need those guys to again, we used the Astros earlier. You need the guys that are paid handsomely to play up to par.
Yeah.
Dalton Schultz, Christian Kirk, Joe Mixon, those guys need to play their role.
Yeah, and health goes without saying, right? Obviously, if guys are not healthy, then this conversation goes out the window. But on top of health, you need everything that you just mentioned.